You're listening to Strange by Nature, your guide to the strange, weird, unbelievable, and improbable wonders of the natural world.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here today. I am Kirk Mona, and I am joined today by Rachel Ginza and Victoria Thompson. We are all professional naturalists who together have scoured the world for weird and wonderful wonders just to please your mammalian brain's desire for novelty. Isn't that nice? Let's do this.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. I'm glad to be here. Good to see you too.
Yay!
Well,
Hi,
we're
Victoria.
glad you're here. Yeah.
Well, and it is October, so we're kind of
Yes,
in the
it
lead up to
is.
Halloween season.
Oh, we're leading up to the Halloween show. It's coming. I'm so excited.
I can't say that my episode today is like super Halloween-y, but it's definitely strange. So I'm going to launch right in.
All right.
So there are certain jobs out there which are just by their nature extremely badass. And one of those is to be a wildland firefighter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
I mean, regular firefighters are already pretty amazing. And the folks who are out there in the wilderness dealing with massive forest fires are even more intense. And any wildland firefighter is dealing with a lot. It's an incredibly dangerous job. The hours are long and relentless. It's physically extremely taxing. You're carrying tons of heavy equipment and protective clothing, doing hard labor in, hellishly hot and fiery conditions. Now, just imagine that you're a firefighter at the scene of a forest fire doing your hard work when all of a sudden you and your crew members are swarmed by a bunch of insects which land on you and start biting you really hard.
Absolutely not.
Not ideal.
Yeah.
Not ideal.
Like, feels like a bee sting, very painful. So,
Oh,
I'm
What
already
the heck?
dealing with other things, and now I have insects that are like stinging me and biting me. No, I'm out.
right?
I'll
So-
pass.
Why are these insects here? Most animals, very sensibly, try to flee from a forest fire. Firefighting human
okay.
beings being the rare exception. So what insect in its right mind would be flying toward a forest fire? And
Huh.
Well, I
The
would think
answer
it'd be
is-
one that needs fire, but I can't think of one that
Right.
needs fire.
Well, you are right, Rachel.
Bark beetles.
Bark beetles. Yes, the answer is beetles of the genus
Oh, okay.
Melanophila,
Yes.
otherwise known as fire beetles.
Fire beetles. Okay.
What a
cool.
great name.
Yeah.
Tell us more about them, please.
So they deliberately seek out forest fires
Okay.
so that they can mate and lay eggs. This
I
is
mean,
where
that's
they
putting
do
the
their
definition
business.
of "It's Hot in Here." That song.
Right?
Yeah,
That's a hot relationship. Exactly.
very hot.
They're
Literal
You could
Tinder.
say they're going hot and heavy.
Did you just say literal Tinder?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, God. That's so terrible. Oh.
We're all awful.
All right, tell us
Continue.
about Beetle Tinder.
Yeah. So they find freshly burned trees, sometimes ones that are still smoldering, and then they find a mate. The females lay their eggs in the freshly charred bark, and the larvae then eat the burned wood of the trees.
Okay.
Wow, okay. Cool.
Yeah. So it's pretty incredible to start with, but you have to wonder
Why?
two main questions. One, why? Exactly, why?
Mhm.
And two, how are the beetles even finding the forest fires to begin with?
Can they smell it?
Hmm.
'Cause
And why
there's-
don't we get swarmed with beetles whenever we have a campfire?
Oh, God.
Yeah,
I don't
good question.
even want to have that happen. Ugh.
I mean, are you going to tell us the answer or are you going to leave us hanging here?
I am going to
Beautiful.
tell you the answer.
Yes.
What do you think
I
I'm
have
here
theories. I want to
Well,
know.
sometimes we don't
Right.
get to know. It's wild part of the podcast.
I know.
Ugh.
So, as for the question of why, the beetle larvae are specifically adapted to eat burned wood. And
Right.
if you think about it, this is a niche where you wouldn't get a lot of competitors,
Right.
right?
Yeah, that was my exact thought. I was thinking when there's an available niche, something will fill it.
Yes. Also, presumably, a lot of the predators that would normally eat beetles and larvae have fled the fire, so you're also less
Yeah.
likely to get eaten.
You're not wrong. Birds are mostly not hanging out there.
And no, they're not. They're hiding or running or flying away. Well, and as for how, these beetles actually have infrared heat sensors, pit organs on the underside of their bodies.
What?
So
Wow. Okay.
you may have heard of pit vipers. So like
Yeah.
rattlesnakes are in that group of snakes. And they have pit organs in their faces, which help them sense the heat of the small mammals that they feed on. Although the pit organs of snakes work differently, but the beetles, they have basically what amounts to a small little pocket of water in their pit organ, which when it expands,
Okay.
triggers a nerve response.
Okay.
And so like if the water is sort of facing toward the heat, it expands more and they know to go that direction.
That's
Huh.
crazy.
Yeah.
Because like how, I mean, okay, if you're right at a fire, sure, but I mean, first of all, you're gonna get real close to that fire, and like, what if you're 20 miles away? Is this gonna be like, my water sac is expanding a bit when I face east? Like, that seems like an incomplete explanation to me.
Well, I don't. So we'll get to some of that, but they can
Okay.
sense a fire from surprisingly far away. And
Wow.
that explanation of how their pit organ works may not. I don't know how accurate that is. I saw that in only one of my sources, but they have shown up in areas dozens of miles away from the nearest coniferous forest, which is where they normally live. And they have appeared in very unexpected places, including a tar production plant and sugar refineries. Yeah.
Oh,
So they
okay.
like
So they're
swarm the hot
honing in
pipes.
on something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They've swarmed hot vats of sugar syrup. I think a heat source has to be a certain size, probably, for them to be attracted to it. Because like,
Just
I didn't
imagine
read
cooking
anything
maple
about.
syrup and all of a sudden beetles are flying in. You're like, no,
Yeah.
no, get out, get out.
Nightmare.
That'd be a nightmare. Oh,
Like, yeah, not at campfires that I've heard about. However, this is really great. In the 1940s, they would swarm the UC Berkeley football stadium during games, or at least one game this happened, biting the
wonderful.
fans, apparently attracted by the heat of some 20,000 lit cigarettes, this being the 1940s.
No way.
Shut up. I was thinking the lights, but is all this cigarettes?
Whoa.
Oh my gosh. I think people I'm old enough to remember when like every restaurant had a smoking section. People
Yeah.
smoked
I mean,
on
I
airplanes.
remember that.
And at least in our home state here of Minnesota, they banned indoor smoking long ago. But like, you forget how much smoke people used to be around when smoking was allowed more in public. And it was a lot. You couldn't go out to a restaurant without coming home just reeking of cigarettes.
Oh,
So
I remember.
It was a different time. Time. We had special clothes we wore just for when we go out to like the nightclub or something like that, because you could not wear that until it was deeply laundered.
You have to
That
hang
was
it up
gross.
outside or something. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, a study in 2012 did some computer modeling based on a giant oil tank fire that occurred in 1924 in the Central Valley of California that had attracted beetles. It was known to have attracted beetles. And they knew the volume of oil that had burned in this
What?
fire. And so
Okay.
they were able to model how hot and how large it was using various very complicated models of how a fire
Nice.
burns of this size and shape. And given that the closest coniferous forests were 50 to 100 miles away, they were able to estimate the sensitivity to infrared radiation that the beetles likely have.
Because they figure out the beetles are hanging out in the coniferous forest.
Oh.
Yeah.
And okay,
All
okay,
right.
clever. I like it.
Like they're
I like
not they're not hanging out in the Central Valley where there are basically no trees.
it. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So they estimated the sensitivity to lead to a range of 130 kilometers to be able to detect a forest fire.
That's insane.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm impressed.
And it seems that they may also be able to detect smoke with their antennae,
Okay.
which is
All right.
perhaps another reason that they swarmed the Berkeley football stadium.
Probably.
Right. Maybe they were just fans too. Yeah.
Yeah, could be.
Eh.
Good game, I bet. One thing I started wondering as I was looking into this was, why are the beetles biting?
Why are they biting the
Yeah.
firefighters?
And
Victoria, can I ask a question?
yeah,
Why are the beetles biting?
well, good question, Kirk. I was wondering that
Oh, thank you.
myself. Yeah.
Huh.
They seem to, and based on the accounts I was reading, they seem to do this aggressively rather than defensively.
Okay.
And the most convincing explanation I've seen is that anything vertical that they land on in a fire zone is basically a tree to them, even if
Assumed
it's
to be
in
a
fact
tree.
a firefighter. So they might be
Yep.
trying to like grip, bite, or kind of poke into the wood in order to lay their eggs
All right.
on it.
All right.
Maybe. I don't. It didn't.
I'll say this. It's an explanation.
It's an explanation.
Stands to be proven true or false, but it's not. It's
Yeah.
not unreasonable.
Yeah.
They think you're a tree and they're trying to take a bite and go, no, that's not charred.
Keep going.
Moving on.
Right. But anyway,
Although I gotta imagine firefighters probably are a little charred and smell like
Yeah.
Oh
smoke
my
a lot.
gosh.
So
Yeah, I'm sure they do smell like burned trees. Yeah, so we may be seeing more of these beetles as we're experiencing more forest fires due to climate change. So you may hear more about these beetles in the future. And they're just making life a little harder for the firefighters, but doing something very cool.
That's pretty fun.
wow.
Yeah.
Nature finds a way.
Nature finds a way. My sources this week were a Vox.com article from July 2023, which was very informative. And the paper I mentioned about the fire modeling was by Schmitz and Buzak from the journal PLOS ONE in 2012. And I also got some good information from the American Museum of Natural History.
Thanks, Victoria.
So we are
Cool.
going to take, you're welcome. We're going to take a little break. And when we come back, Kirk will have something for us.
Mm-hmm. On August 29th, 1859, the sun let off a large solar flare that sparked impressive northern lights across the northern hemisphere, perhaps in the southern hemisphere as well. We know today that the northern lights are triggered mostly by solar flares from the sun. And at the time, though, back in like 1859, the connection between solar flares and northern lights was not understood for a pretty good reason. People didn't know what
No.
solar flares were. Like, they didn't apparently know they existed yet. No
We
one had
didn't
ever
know
seen one.
germs were a thing.
Turns out the first ever solar flare. yeah, I mean, there was a lot we needed to learn.
We're starting to figure it out.
But yeah, there was a cool time, lots of new science and stuff. It turns out the first ever solar flare was recorded by humans, as luck would have it, the very next day, on September 1st, 1859. There was two different
Cool.
British astronomers, weirdly, both of them named Richard, and they happened to see and record a large solar flare on the
Popular
surface
name.
of the sun on September 1st. So very cool, and they both wrote it up, and it was, like, yay, they saw something. Now, usually it takes 2 days, approximately, for the charged particles from what's called a coronal mass ejection. That's the stuff that gets shot off from the sun during a solar flare. It takes usually about 2 days to reach Earth. That is, if it's even pointed toward us, right? Like, or it could be pointed right at us, but we're not there anymore by the time it gets to us,
Right.
right? Because the Earth is
Right.
always moving. So, sometimes they do end up getting pointed in the right direction, and we plow into it, it plows into us. When that happens, it usually takes about 2 days. How we think, however, that remember I said there was Northern Lights on August 29th,
Yeah.
and this was September 1st?
Yeah.
We think that on August 29th, there probably also was a large solar flare, and it basically cleared the path between the sun and the Earth. There is some stuff there, some particles and things that slow stuff down. So this first one was like a snowplow that cleared the path. So the second coronal mass ejection heading toward the Earth, instead of it taking 2 days, it cleared all 93 million miles of distance in just 17
What?
hours,
Whoa.
which is really fast. really, really fast.
Wow.
And what these astronomers in England didn't realize when they recorded that solar flare was that it wasn't just the first solar flare ever recorded, which would have been a big deal, but it is to this day still the largest and most impactful coronal mass ejection that has ever struck the Earth in recorded history. So, like,
Wow.
what are the odds that the first one humans ever happen to see and go, oh, hey, I saw something in the
Should
sun,
write
I
that
should
down.
record this, also
The
happens to be
largest.
the biggest. And I will put a little asterisk, maybe not the biggest ever seen, the biggest that has ever then hit the Earth that we've realized was the cause of
Nuts.
that. I'm talking today about the Carrington event. And this was named after Richard Carrington, who was one of the two guys who
Oh, so
recorded
one
that solar flare.
Richard gets
Good old Dick Carrington.
one Richard gets recognition forever, and the other one just gets forgotten.
Yeah, I'm really not sure why. I feel kind of bad about that, but I'm not
They
the
should
one
have
who
called
named
it
it.
the
Oh,
Okay?
Richard
that would have been
event.
better.
Right.
Anyway.
Well, it might have been more appropriate when you hear what happened. We'll come to it. So likely the first people to notice something strange was going on, other than maybe seeing some northern lights, were telegraph operators. And yes, we did have telegraphs back in 1859. Aurora can induce electrical currents in wires. And back in 1859, telegraph lines were really the only long wires on Earth. And I have here for you a snippet of a conversation between two telegraph operators, one in Portland, Maine, the other in Boston, Massachusetts. And this was on the night of September 2nd. So presumably the clock had rolled over to midnight. Keep in mind, this was telegraphy. So this was actually like a Morse code conversation. They weren't going, hello, friend, how are you today? This is all
Right.
dots and dashes. But here's what it said. Boston operator to Portland operator, please cut off your battery power source entirely for 15 minutes. Portland operator, will do so. It is now disconnected. Boston, mine is disconnected and we are working with the auroral current. How do you receive my writing? Portland, better than with our batteries on. Current comes and goes gradually. Boston, my current is very strong at times, and we can work better without the batteries, as the aurora seems to neutralize and augment our batteries alternately, making current too strong at times for our relay magnets. Suppose we work without batteries while we're affected by this trouble? Portland, very well. Shall I go ahead with business? Boston, yes, go ahead. It's a very cordial conversation. This conversation was reported in the Boston Evening Traveler newspaper. They reported that the telegraph operators were able to carry on their work for 2 hours without having to use any battery power to run the telegraph machines.
Oh
Wild.
my gosh.
And at the time, telegraph machines were run off batteries. They just shut the batteries off and had a 2-hour conversation, sending messages back and forth
What?
with no power being put into the system because the aurora itself was creating so much like juice in the system, which is wild.
That's
This-
nuts.
Auroras creating current in telegraph lines apparently had been sort of seen before as a bit of a novelty. Like they had noticed when the aurora is strong, you'd be able to get maybe like
That's
a word
wild.
or two through on a telegraph when it was turned off. But
Yeah.
this was 2 hours. And they're like, this is great. Just leave the batteries off. It works better this way, which is crazy. So they mentioned something about like how it was too powerful if they're using the batteries and
That's
the
insane.
the aurora power. And it sounds like that caused quite a lot of problem because
This is nicer.
there were some offices where sparks were seen shooting out of the machinery. Telegraph towers had sparks like shooting off them, basically like the pylons you'd see on the side of the railroad track with how the looks like telephone lines.
Oh.
There was sparks shooting off those. And actually there's been at least one recorded case where a telegraph office, I think in Pittsburgh, actually caught on fire
What?
due to this phenomenon.
Yikes.
That's
So this
nuts.
was fun for these guys, but kind of bad news overall. These aurora that night were intense. The aurora was visible all the way, obviously, from the poles, but also to areas where aurora are not usually seen,
What?
such as South Central Mexico,
What?
Cuba, Hawaii, Southern Japan.
Oh.
This was a major event that also affected the
That's
South Pole too.
nuts.
There's all kinds of reports from Australia at the time. So as you can imagine, our world is now, but think about current day. Our world is now crisscrossed by more than just telegraph lines, right?
Yeah.
And another
Just a little-
Carrington level event could prove disastrous. And more than just like, an interesting anomaly on the telegraph wires. We've actually come kind of close to having this happen again in 1989. And I remember a little bit of this. We had a Carrington level CME, or coronal mass ejection, that was ejected from the sun, but luckily it did not directly hit Earth. We only got a glancing blow. It was enough, though, that we got a taste of what is possible. The space shuttle was in orbit at the time and suffered bad readouts on at least one of the computer systems, which could have been very dangerous. The GOES weather satellites were temporarily disabled. NASA's TDRS satellite system basically had hundreds and hundreds of faults that were reported. And I'm trying to think what else. So shortwave radio communication was knocked out over much of the world. Aurora were seen as far south as Florida. And keep in mind, this is a glancing blow. The U.S. power grid, because now we got power lines crisscrossing the country, right? The power grid had to deal with amazingly large induced currents that were causing circuit breakers to start to want to trip and stuff, caused significant interference, and most notably in Canada, where the induced currents were stronger because they're closer to the North Pole and where aurora is. Also, the underlying geology means that the electrical current can't travel through the ground as well because it's mostly rock. And so it's like, what can I travel on? Ooh, big wires. Let's travel on these. And the power grid in Canada, for a good chunk of Canada, failed, especially in the Quebec area. Over the course of 90 seconds is all it took to plunge millions of people into darkness and cause a 9-hour blackout over much of Canada.
Wow.
And this was like a really big deal at the time. So basically what's happening is all the breakers were just tripping, and so it just shut the whole system down.
But Kirk, why didn't they just turn off the batteries?
Yeah, it doesn't,
Right?
just
doesn't
kidding.
work that way anymore.
That was good, Victoria.
But
High
yeah,
five.
it was mostly I think an issue of something.
Thanks.
The biggest issue was that the breakers were tripping because they saw like a fault. Like, what's all the extra current? Was a trip? And you don't really expect that all of them across several territories are all going to trip at once. So not great. So that was a really bad situation, but it was only a glancing blow, right? And there's a lot of concern that the Earth, if it took a direct hit, could be disastrous in our highly wired and electrified society. And I've known about that for a long time and thought that was a pretty amazing sort of story, but it turns out something I read recently kind of hints that it could actually be far worse because there might be something even larger looming out there. So scientists, have been studying the Carrington event, but they've also recently been studying something called Miyake events that could be something even larger. There was a Japanese physicist, her name was Fusa Miyake, who published a paper in 2012 where she analyzed carbon-14 in tree rings. Now, carbon is regularly pulled out of the atmosphere by trees, and by looking at the ratio of carbon-12 to the slightly radioactive carbon-14, you can estimate how old something is. So this is done, for carbon dating and all the time. And what she was looking at, though, was individual tree rings, how much carbon-14 is in individual tree rings, because she got tipped off that maybe there was something funny going on in some of these trees. And turns out she definitely found something strange. Carbon-14 is naturally created in our atmosphere when high-energy cosmic rays from space hit the atmosphere, and it creates carbon-14, and then plants can take that up, and it gets incorporated into their leaves and stems and tree barks and even their tree rings, right? Yep. So if we get a huge influx of these high energy cosmic rays, that could mean that you're going to get more carbon-14, and that's exactly what she found in these tree rings. She found large spikes of carbon-14 in the year 774 CE. And what researchers and others then studied, they went out and her team went out and studied more, and other people started looking at other trees.
Just on a side note, those
and
are
they found
ancient trees.
I mean, 774 was, it was a while ago, right? But the number that's recent, Rachel, compared to the numbers I'm about to throw at you, because they tried to look at other trees and they found other radiation spikes in these trees. One in 7176 BCE, 5410 BCE, 5259 BCE, 663 BCE, and then some in the common era. There was one that kind of spanned 993 to 994. So, about 1,000 years ago or so, give or take. So it appears this is a reoccurring, thing that happened over the last 9,300 years, which is about how far back we can go with trees. We can't go much further back than that. Kirk in the editing booth here, jumping in to let you know, I literally just finished saying you can't go much back further than that. And while I'm editing this episode of the podcast, a brand new article just came out saying that they found another Miyake event in trees 17,500 years old, which is astounding. So apparently they can go back even further, and this event they found was even more powerful than all the other ones that are found. So little late-breaking stuff throwing into the episode. We'll get back to the show. These could indicate massive blasts of solar radiation hitting the Earth and being captured in tree rings. But how massive? Well, the Carrington event has engineers worried about a repeat, and they've been hardening systems against that sort of blast as best they can. And the question comes up, are they doing enough? Because researchers estimate that these, what they now call these Miyake events, were up to 80 times more powerful than the Carrington event.
What?
Yeah. This is the planet you live on, folks. To say that one of these occurring would be damaging is an understatement.
That's a gross understatement, Kirk.
Yeah. So how likely is another one of these events? The trouble is we don't really know. We'd like more data. The data we have on them is limited. Given the data we have right now, I think I saw one paper kind of estimate like a 1% chance in any given decade, which is higher than I would like. But that is
absolutely higher than I would like.
Yeah. One of the researchers said, look, I'm more worried about being hit by a bus than one of these happening in my lifetime. So probably not that bad. And it's like, we're trying to harden systems against things like this. We're not there yet. If this were to happen today, the damage to technology would be immense. The damage to satellite systems and delicate electronics, it could be really bad. If the lights do go out, at least we'd have some amazing aurora to watch under dark skies. There has been some recent research that is calling into question. Some of the data seems like it doesn't maybe line up with what we'd expect from the sun. And so researchers are starting to even think, well, could these events actually not have been from the sun? Could this have been from like a nearby supernova or some other sort of celestial event outside our solar system, or like a passing comet or something else that somehow affected the amount of cosmic radiation the Earth was getting for like one day, which is weird. Really weird. But
yeah.
I gotta tell you, we've only been living on this planet with modern technology for a blink of an eye. We've only been studying nature for a slightly longer blink, and there are still mysteries to be found and discoveries to be made. And it certainly makes for an interesting time to be alive, learning about our planet, sun, and universe. And maybe we'll learn more about this in the years to come. Hopefully, not learning it the hard way, right?
Yeah, let's not have a practical demonstration.
Nope. As interesting as it might be, I'm going to pass. So my sources this week for this story were Science News, My Brain, Scientific American, and Wikipedia.
Your brain.
I mean, some of the stuff I just have in my brain because I'm a giant nerd. So thought I'd go ahead and just cite that and get it out of the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I have. And we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, it'll be Rachel's turn. Wait. Hold on. Before we get to Rachel's segment, you know what? There's something we have to address. We as you know, we have a Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/strangebynature, and we have patrons who help support this show, which we very much appreciate. And one of the cool things is sometimes our patrons send us funny things. They send us memes. They send us story ideas. And sometimes they send us questions. This one, it's a doozy, and we're going to talk about it in between our segments here. Rachel, do you want to tell our listeners who sent it, and what question we got?
So this question came from our patron, Amanda. This is the same person who sent me pineapple-flavored gummy bears just because she knew I would hate them. Like, there weren't any other flavors. They were just
if you're
pineapple.
A new listener,
The worst.
If you're a new listener, you need to understand that all three of us
hate
passionately
pineapple.
hate pineapple.
So
find it, and just to be
I don't like that he
awful,
eats me
you
back.
guys.
Anyway.
So so she sent us all the gummy bears that were only
pineapple,
only the pineapple flavored. And now, if that wasn't enough, she sent us this question. What is the question?
The question is, would you rather? It is, would you rather eat a 16-ounce can of pineapple once a week for a year, and then be able to bring back 5 things?
16 ounces is a lot too.
So much. And then be able to bring back 5 things from extinction or near extinction, or eat a whole fresh pineapple once a week for a year, and then be able to bring 7 things from extinction or near extinction. And then what would we bring back to then sustainable populations? Which, thank you, Amanda. I do appreciate the caveat
This is evil.
Of sustainable populations,
Super
but
evil.
at the same time, this is the worst question you could have asked me. Of us, truly. I hate
Just
pineapple.
I think we may all have the same answer to the first part, I'm guessing, but I'm really curious to hear what you have to say.
I mean, if I have to eat it for a year, I'd rather have fresh pineapple, right? And then I get
me too.
7 things.
Absolutely. I go for the fresh.
I agree. Although isn't the enzyme inactivated in canned pineapple?
Well, I did a little, reading up on this, and canned pineapple tends to have a pretty consistent pH, whereas fresh pineapple can vary wildly. You can get some that is much more acidic than canned pineapple, and you can also find some that's much less acidic. And I think the enzyme is part of it, but I think the acidity is part of what I just don't really like, because it makes my mouth feel kind of gross. And
yeah,
I don't eat pineapple, but from what I hear,
fresh is
the
better.
fresh pineapple, people are like, oh my God, this is so much better.
Yeah.
So I feel like she really threw us a bone here by saying that if you eat the fresh, you can bring more species back, because it's like, okay, I'd probably rather have the fresh anyways. And then I can bring more species back from extinction. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go that route. Maybe I'd even learn to like it.
Me too. I mean, I really don't like pineapple, but I feel like if I had to eat it that much, I would at least learn to tolerate it.
Yeah.
And what a hero we'd be for bringing back. Which she didn't specify. If we all do that, do we each get to bring 7 back, or is it 7 for the group? And we all have to eat pineapple every week.
I think if
she didn't clarify.
She didn't clarify, but I will say I would assume that
I think it's 21 species.
I think it's 21 species, because if all 3 of us have to eat pineapple
we're all doing the work.
a year, we get 7 species each. I don't
think we have time to go through 21 species here on the show.
No.
Should we give what's your top 1 or 2? If you could extinct or near extinct species you want to bring back, go for it. What do you got?
I got to go with the cheetah. I just covered it, so they need some help. They would love some love. Cheetah's my first one.
I think I would choose the American chestnut tree.
Ooh.
That's a good one.
That's a good one.
Very, very cool. I'm going to go for my first one. I'll say white rhinos.
Ooh, that's also an excellent one.
And then I'm going to go ahead and do my second one too. Then I'm going to go a little, very different. I'm going to go with the dodo bird.
Yeah.
I'd love to see a dodo.
Yeah.
And have a
That was gonna
sustainable
be one of
population.
mine.
I feel like if we were able to bring dodos back now, we probably wouldn't be hunting them for food as much. So, like, I feel like
think
they might
so.
have a chance to make it. You know,
Mhm.
Agree.
you got a second one?
I think I would go with passenger pigeon.
Oh, that would
wow.
be fun.
That
That's
would
good.
be amazing. Very good. Very good.
Oh man.
Carolina
feel like-
parakeets up there too.
Ooh, that one's good.
Mm.
I thought about ivory woodpeckers as well.
Ooh,
Yeah.
Ivorbill, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, look, there's so many. We could literally do, 21 species. You could do a lot more than 21, but
we could.
fun to think about. And
Oh,
maybe,
man.
if you want to do a little Jurassic Park, we can get on that. But instead of making dinosaurs, we just make
Horrifying.
birds are dinosaurs. So we make dinosaurs.
Maybe not.
If you
The
bring the Ivorbill
thermocline.
woodpecker back and the dodo back and the passenger pigeon and the Carolina parakeet, technically you are bringing dinosaurs back. So
You are correct.
ba-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da. All right. Amazing. All right, well, let's end this and say thank you to Amanda. Thank you to all
Thanks,
of our patrons. We
Amanda.
couldn't do this without you. If
Thanks,
you've got some
Amanda.
question you want us to answer and you're one of our patrons, send us a message through Patreon. And if you're not and you want to send us a message, well, just head on over to patreon.com/strangebynature and go ahead and sign up for one of our 3 levels and you can get bonus content and all kinds of fun stuff. And we'll see you soon.
All right. So I have opinions, and this is not a surprise for anybody. And this
No,
particular
that's why
opinion,
you're on a podcast.
exactly, might be controversial, but I think Christmas music should not be played until, technically, I think it shouldn't be played until after Thanksgiving, but I will tolerate it.
This is not controversial
After
in any way,
Halloween.
shape, or form. This is the correct answer,
I
Rachel.
agree.
Thank you.
Absolutely not.
Thank
Not
you.
till after Thanksgiving.
Oh, I
Yep,
had a
after
roommate once
Thanksgiving.
that started playing it.
And if
in
you go before
August.
Halloween, I will be very angry.
Yeah, I had
One holiday
I
at a
had a
time.
roommate. Thank you. One holiday at a time. I did. I had a roommate that once played it starting in like August, and I'm like, no,
Nope.
it was the worst.
That's grounds for a breakup of the roommate.
But yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh. So I think it at the very least after Halloween, especially since Halloween is just
Maybe.
such an excellent holiday on its own.
The best, yeah.
With
Mhm.
my regards to spooky season, I did want to discuss something
I'm
that
so,
is
I'm
very
so curious where this story is going, by the way.
Thank you. Where it is I want to talk about something that is well integrated into the Christmas season. But this particular nature bit is, I don't think it's part of the Christmas season or spirit or anything like that at all. I think it's rather spooky and kind of horrifying. So what do you both know?
Reindeer.
That's fair.
No.
What do you both know about mistletoe?
I knew that's where you
Oh.
were going.
It's a parasitic plant. That's what I know.
Mm-hmm.
People
What about
kiss
you,
you
Kirk?
when you stand under it. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean that. yeah.
Smoochy,
Well, yeah.
smoochy. I believe there's some, there's some druid connections as well and stuff, like
Yeah.
culturally.
There is.
I mean, what do you?
I think it grows on oak trees.
Interesting. All right. So we're going to dig into mistletoe today. For those of
Nice.
you who don't know, it
So-
is
Such a weird Halloween-y topic. All right.
well, I know, but it's a parasite. It's
not
supposed
Halloween
to be
yet.
Christmassy, and it's not Halloween yet. I have a good topic for that one, but it
You
resembles.
think it's more
like,
of a Jack Skellington type situation?
exactly.
Okay.
So mistletoe resembles, to me at least when I was looking at pictures, it resembles a bush, but it's attached to another
Yeah.
tree. Like Victoria said, it is
Absolutely.
a parasitic plant. It's actually a hemiparasitic plant. as when it is really young, it does do some photosynthesis, but just until it can really dig its knot roots into the tree. So
Hemi meaning
mistletoe.
partial to
Tendrils.
those
Hemi.
at home.
There we go. Yeah, they're little like tendrils right
half.
in. So they look a lot like a bush that is a different color than the host tree that they're inhabiting. There are somewhere around, I'm going to talk mostly in generals when it comes to mistletoe, because there's something like, let me double check this number here. I saw it was like
3.
to do. Huh. There
4.
is, there's more than 4, Kirk. There are approximately
I'm sure
400, there's 450 species of mistletoe type plants.
I was only off by an order of magnitude, really. It's fine.
Yeah, truly. But they are actually, they're about 60 to 70, like the species that they actually host on. So depending on the particular species and genus and where they might be, some are really only on hardwood trees. Some are more softwood trees. So like evergreen trees like firs and pines and such, or like Victoria said, or oak trees. And they're a symbol of Christmas, which I could go into weirdly, yeah. It actually stems from Druidic tradition. The reason why it is tied into Christmas, I am going to go into it.
Well, that's what I thought.
Because Celtic Druids, I lied. We are going to go into it.
I'm not going to talk about
Celtic
this. Okay,
Druids, well. Celtic Druids actually like cut pieces of it, and they would tie it in bundles over their doorways and such to bring to help ward off and cleanse at the the winter solstice, to help bring in good energy and everything. Anyway, so which is really cool, really fun. But I wanted to talk a little bit about.
I think kissing is good energy. I agree.
It obviously like changed over many years, but
a little bit,
just a titch. So mistletoe is this woody herbaceous, like leafy plant that looks a lot like a shrub. It's up in a tree, but what happens is, so it has these little berries, which we're all pretty used to. These little berries get eaten by birds, and it goes through the digestion tract of a bird, gets pooped out onto a tree somewhere, and that little seed will then start to grow. It starts photosynthesizing, but what will happen is once it starts to photosynthesize, wherever it might land, it has like, as it starts to grow, it has this flat platform that it attaches to the tree. It's a way for it to support itself. And underneath it creates a wedge, and that wedge goes into the tree. The wedge is kind of like a version of roots. It's seeking out the xylem and phloem of the tree that it's attached to. And once it taps in to that xylem, it starts taking the nutrients and water from the tree. Which is wild. Like, I wouldn't have expected that when it came to mistletoes in the first place. And they're actually really good for birds. Like, about 90 bird species are actually specialized in mistletoe berries. Like, that's what they eat, and that's it, which is wild.
Wow.
But so that little seed, once it is attached and has started to grow, it will then continue to grow around the tree that it is sitting on and creates its own little shrub, creates berries, has these beautiful flowers, which are bird pollinated flowers.
Oh, cool.
And then proceeds to, and the cycle starts all over again.
Sure. But it doesn't just flower one time and die, does it? Is it like a repeating?
Yes, it is a, what's the word? Perennial bush.
Okay, good.
That's the word. Yeah, it's
Gotcha.
perennial. So it doesn't just
Because
go
some
away.
of them
It
can
will
get
continue
quite
to grow
large.
and grow
I'd be
and grow.
impressed if that was all in 1 year.
They absolutely can. The wild thing, I think, about all of this, like, it is a parasite, is taking from the host tree, but it doesn't take enough to kill the tree unless there's multiple mistletoe bushes, and then it might kill the tree, which, as a parasite, you don't want to take so much, because if you take everything, then your host dies and you die pretty much.
That's bad form.
Yeah, we don't love that. The last thing I wanted to say about mistletoe, it's a little shorter of a topic, but we've had a long episode today, is the fact that all the parts, if you eat just a few too many, the berries, the leaves, the bark, if humans eat them, they are pretty poisonous.
Yeah, not great.
It is not a good thing. Don't eat it, which I always think is wild, considering we hang them over a tree, over like doorways and everything. They're a symbol of love or whatever, and they vary in toxicity, but for the most part, usually it's not fatal. But you can still get anything. Usually it's not fatal. Don't eat it.
I have a solution here, Rachel. Well, no, see, I mean, yes, to be clear, but you start off your story complaining that people were celebrating Christmas too early.
Right.
Maybe we need to be putting up the mistletoe at Halloween, because it's actually pretty spooky and parasitic and poisonous. And, that can be, oh, look, I have a Christmas decoration up, but it's really for Halloween because it fits better with Halloween.
Right. Absolutely. Which was the point of this in the first place.
Absolutely.
Because it is a spooky little plant that is slowly taking nutrients away from its host. And for some reason, it is a symbol of Christmas, not Halloween. Yep. And it should be. That's what I have for all of you this week. It's Halloween!
Awesome. It's coming. Get your mistletoe up.
It's a new tradition.
Yeah.
There we go. All right.
You can tell these Strange by Nature listeners by the mistletoe on their door. And then everyone's going to want to kiss you on Halloween. That could be kind of weird. I don't know.
Oh, no.
Yeah, not great.
Trick-or-treater kiss.
Oh,
no.
We'll workshop it. No, no. We're not doing that. Anyway.
All right.
That's what I have for all y'all this week. We'll see you all next week.
Oh,
goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks everyone for listening to today's show. Be sure to subscribe. New episodes drop every Wednesday, and we love sharing this strange world with all of our listeners. If you would be so kind as to leave us a 5-star review, that would be great. It lets other lovers of the strange discover the show. You can reach out to us on social media by searching for Strange by Nature Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can send us an email as well. Our address is contact@strangebynaturepodcast.com. If you want more information about the show, you can also check out our website, which is strangebynaturepodcast.com. Until next week, get outside, stay curious, and embrace the strange.